You have been taught that miracles are magic that breaks the laws of physics. But what if miracles are just the mastery of laws you have not yet learned? The ancient Aramaic texts reveal that before Jesus performed a healing, he utilized a specific power that modern religion has forgotten. It was not just his faith, it was his frequency. When he spoke to the sick, he was not just giving a command, he was emitting a sound wave that restructured reality. This is the lost science of the spoken word. Let us begin where the Bible begins, because the key to this entire mystery is hidden in the very first sentence of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. For centuries we have read this as a poetic metaphor. We think of a word as ink on a page, or a thought in the mind, or a grammatical structure we use to communicate. But the original Hebrew and Aramaic writers understood something that quantum physicists are only now rediscovering. A word is not silent. A word is a vibration. It is a sound wave that travels through the medium of reality. When Genesis says God spoke, "Let there be light," it means a frequency was emitted that caused the chaotic energy of the void to organize itself into photons. This is not poetry, this is mechanics. Everything in your universe is vibrating. The chair you sit on the screen, you watch this on your own skin. It appears solid only because the atoms are vibrating at a speed your eyes cannot deconstruct. If you could slow down the vibration of a rock, it would turn into liquid. If you could speed up the vibration of water, it would turn into steam. Jesus understood that to change matter, you do not touch the matter. You change the vibration that holds the matter together. Consider the fall of Jericho in the Old Testament. The Israelites did not push the walls over. They did not use catapults. They did not use physical force. They marched around the city in silence for 6 days, building a kinetic charge. On the 7th day, they blew trumpets and shouted in unison. For a long time, historians called this a myth. But today, engineers know about resonant frequency. Every physical object has a natural frequency at which it vibrates. If you match that frequency with a sound wave of sufficient amplitude, the object will shatter. A trained opera singer can shatter a crystal glass not by magic, but by matching the resonant frequency of the glass. The walls of Jericho fell because the sound waves generated by the trumpets and the army hit the exact resonant frequency of the stone mortar. The structure lost its integrity and collapsed. This is the physics of sound. Now apply this to the miracles of Jesus. When Jesus stood before a man with a withered hand or a woman with an issue of blood, he was not just speaking grammatically correct sentences. He was acting as a tuning fork. He was emitting a carrier wave of such perfect coherence that the chaotic vibration of the sickness had to realign. Illness is simply the body vibrating out of tune. It is a dissonance in the biological symphony. Cancer is a cell that has lost its rhythmic instruction from the DNA. When Jesus spoke, he reintroduced the correct frequency. In Mark chapter 7, verse 34, we see a strange detail that pastors rarely explain. Before healing a deaf and mute man, Jesus looked up to heaven and sighed deep within his spirit. Why did he sigh? Why not just speak? Because that sigh, that deep guttural groan, was the generation of the bass frequency. It was the internal vibration required to carry the intention of healing. He was not just asking the Father, he was becoming the instrument of the Father. He was aligning his vocal cords, his breath, and his intent to produce a sound that would physically restructure the ear canal of the deaf man. This is why he often told people not to tell anyone after a miracle. He needed to maintain the frequency field without the interference of public doubt and chaotic chatter. The silence he practiced in the wilderness was his training ground. He was learning to hear the hum of the universe so that he could replicate it. There is a field of study today called Cymatics. A Swiss scientist named Hans Jenny demonstrated that if you play a sound frequency through a metal plate covered in sand, the sand will arrange itself into perfect geometric patterns. The higher the frequency, the more complex and beautiful the pattern. Sound creates form. Sound organizes matter. When Jesus spoke to the storm and said, "Peace, be still," he was projecting a frequency of order into a chaotic system. The wind and the waves obeyed, not because they have ears, but because all matter is subject to vibration. He was the master of the frequency. You might be asking yourself why your prayers do not seem to carry this same power. You speak the words, but the mountain does not move. You command the sickness to leave, but it remains. The problem is not your intention, the problem is your instrument. We must look at the difference between the language you speak today and the language Jesus spoke. We live in a world of descriptive language. English is a language of commerce and contracts. It is designed to label things, to analyze things, and to sell things. If I say the word water in English, it is just a label, a sticky note I place on a liquid. But Aramaic and Hebrew are what linguists call generative languages. In the ancient Semitic tradition, a word does not just describe a thing, it contains the essence of the thing. When Jesus spoke in Aramaic, the sounds themselves held the vibrational blueprint of the object he was naming. This brings us to a terrifying realization about modern music and tuning. For centuries, the Western world tuned its instruments to a specific frequency often related to A equals 432 Hertz. This pitch is mathematically consistent with the rotation of the Earth and the geometry of the universe. It feels softer, warmer, and clearer to the human ear. But in the mid-20th century, the international standard was arbitrarily changed to A equals 440 Hertz. This might seem like a small difference, but in the realm of vibration, it is a declaration of war against the human nervous system. 440 Hertz creates a subtle tension. It disconnects the listener from their environment. It creates a state of low-grade anxiety. Now ask yourself why the standard was changed. Why was the frequency of peace replaced by the frequency of tension? When Jesus healed, he was likely operating in the range of what we now call the solfeggio frequencies, specifically 528 Hertz. In modern biophysics, 528 Hertz is known as the miracle tone. Researchers have found that this specific frequency has the ability to repair damaged DNA. It interacts with the water molecules surrounding the DNA helix and causes them to organize into perfect hexagonal clusters which protect and repair the genetic code. Jesus was not just a moral teacher, he was a master of bioacoustic resonance. When he healed the leper, he was projecting a sonic field that repaired the cellular structure of the man's skin. This is why the Gregorian chants of the early church were so important. The monks were not just singing to pass the time, they were chanting specific vowels at specific pitches in great stone cathedrals designed to amplify those harmonics. They were bathing their bodies in sound healing. This knowledge was systematically removed from the church. The chants were shortened, the frequencies were altered, the cathedrals were turned into tourist attractions. We traded the physics of salvation for the politics of religion. We stopped chanting and started talking. And talking does not move matter. Talking does not repair DNA. To regain the power Jesus used, we must understand that the voice is a scalar energy device. When you speak, you are compressing air, but you are also compressing the ether, the invisible field that connects all things. If your voice is tight, anxious, and coming from your throat, it carries the frequency of fear. Fear contracts matter. It makes the disease hold on tighter. But if your voice comes from the belly, from the center of your being, and carries the frequency of absolute authority and love, it expands matter. It allows the new reality to enter. Jesus spoke from this center. He did not beg God, he resonated with God. Now we must go deeper into the biology of belief, because the frequency Jesus used requires a medium to travel through. You cannot have a sound wave without a conductor. In the physical world, sound travels 4 times faster through water than it does through air. It preserves its intensity over much longer distances in water. This is why whales can communicate across entire oceans. Now look at your own body. You are 70% water. Your brain is 80% water. You are essentially a walking vertical column of water encased in skin. Jesus referred to himself as the living water. This was not just a poetic title. He was describing his state of being. He was the perfect conductor. Because his mind was pure, because he had no resistance, no doubt, and no fear, his internal water was perfectly structured. This allowed the power of God to flow through him without any distortion. Contrast this with the work of the Japanese scientist Dr. Masaru Emoto. Dr. Emoto exposed water to different words and music and then froze the water to photograph the crystals. When water was exposed to words like love and gratitude, it formed beautiful, symmetrical geometric crystals. But when water was exposed to words like hate and you make me sick, the crystals were broken, chaotic, and ugly. Now think about the words you speak to yourself every day. Think about the internal monologue that runs through your head. I am tired. I am sick. I am not good enough. You are literally speaking into the water of your own body. You are structuring your own cells into patterns of chaos and disease. You are chanting a curse over your own biology 24 hours a day. And then you pray for 5 minutes and wonder why nothing changes. The 5 minutes of prayer cannot compete with the 23 hours and 55 minutes of negative frequency you are broadcasting into your own system. Jesus understood that to heal others, he first had to maintain his own internal resonance. This is why he withdrew to lonely places. This is why he spent nights on the mountain. He was detoxing his vibration. He was getting away from the chaotic noise of the crowds so he could still the waters of his own soul. In the Bible, there is a mysterious instruction in Psalm 46 verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. The Hebrew word for still here is rapha. It means to go slack, to let down, to relax. It describes a state where all tension leaves the body. When you are tense, your water is turbulent. A reflection cannot be seen in turbulent water. A sound cannot travel clearly through turbulent water. By entering deep stillness, Jesus made his body a superconductor. When he touched someone, the higher frequency of his body naturally overwrote the lower frequency of the sick person. This is a principle of physics called entrainment. If you place 2 pendulum clocks on a wall near each other and swing them at different rates, eventually they will synchronize. The stronger rhythm always captures the weaker rhythm. Jesus was the strongest rhythm in the room. He did not need to struggle with the disease. He simply walked in with such a dominant frequency of health and life that the disease could not exist in his presence. It was not a fight, it was an override. The darkness did not fight the light simply turned on, and the darkness was gone. This is the secret of the inner room he spoke of in Matthew 6. Enter your closet and shut the door. He was teaching us how to create a resonance chamber. You cannot tune an instrument in a noisy room. You must silence the external world so you can hear the internal hum. We must now cross the bridge from biology into physics, because the power Jesus used was not limited to the body. It extended to the very fabric of reality. In the early 20th century, physicists discovered something that shook the foundations of science. It is called the observer effect. They found that subatomic particles like electrons do not exist as solid matter until they are observed. When no one is watching, they exist as a wave of infinite possibilities. They are everywhere and nowhere at the same time. But the moment a conscious observer focuses on them, the wave collapses and becomes a particle, a solid reality. Now listen to the words of Jesus in Mark 11, verse 24. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Notice the grammar. He does not say, believe that you will receive it in the future. He uses the past tense, believe that you have received it. This is the quantum formula for collapsing the wave function. Jesus understood that in the invisible realm, the healing had already happened. The miracle was already floating in the field of infinite possibilities as a wave. To bring it into the physical world as a particle, he had to observe it as a completed fact. Most people pray with hope. Hope is a statement that the thing is not here yet. Hope pushes the miracle into the future. And because the universe reflects your observation back to you, hoping keeps you in a state of waiting. Jesus did not hope. He knew. He observed the reality where Lazarus was alive. He observed the reality where the blind man could see. And because his observation was singular and unwavering, the quantum field had no choice but to collapse into that specific outcome. This brings us to the science of the heart. The HeartMath Institute has proven that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field 5,000 times stronger than the brain. Your brain is the electrical signal, but your heart is the magnetic attractor. Many people try to manifest with their brain. They think the right thoughts, but their heart is full of fear. The signal is weak. Jesus taught a unification of thought and feeling. When he felt compassion for the crowd, it was not just an emotion, it was the magnetic carrier wave for the miracle. The compassion amplified the signal. To apply this, you must understand that time is an illusion of the physical senses. In the quantum realm, there is no time, there is only now. When you pray, you must stand in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must feel the gratitude of the healing before the healing appears. This is why Jesus gave thanks before he broke the loaves and fishes. He was not thanking God for the little food he had. He was thanking God for the abundance that was about to manifest. The gratitude was the signal that collapsed the reality of abundance into the present moment. If you wait to see it before you believe it, you are operating by the old laws of matter. But if you believe it so you can see it, you are operating by the laws of the kingdom, which we now call quantum mechanics. But there is a biological hardware required to see this invisible realm, and this is perhaps the biggest secret the church has failed to teach. In Matthew 6, verse 22, Jesus says something very strange. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. For centuries, preachers have said this is a metaphor for having a pure focus. But it is not a metaphor, it is anatomy. Deep in the center of your brain sits a tiny gland the size of a grain of rice. It is called the pineal gland. It is shaped exactly like a pine cone. In the Vatican right now, in the court of the pine cone, there stands a massive bronze statue of a pine cone. The Pope carries a staff with a pine cone on it. Why is the center of Christianity obsessed with this gland if they do not teach you about it? The pineal gland is the single eye Jesus was talking about. Biologically, it contains retinal tissue just like your physical eyes. It is literally a third eye that sees inward instead of outward. But here is the physics. Inside the pineal gland are tiny floating crystals made of calcite. These crystals have a property called piezoelectricity. This means that if you apply pressure to them, they generate an electrical charge. When the ancient monks chanted, when they hummed, when they practiced rhythmic breathing, they were creating a physical resonance in the skull that vibrated the pineal gland. This vibration squeezes the crystals and causes them to release light. This is not poetic light, it is actual bioluminescence. When Jesus said your whole body will be filled with light, he was describing the activation of this gland. When the pineal gland is fully active, it secretes chemicals that allow the brain to perceive dimensions beyond the physical. It opens the curtain. This is how the prophets saw visions. This is how Jesus saw what the Father was doing. He was not guessing, he was seeing with the single eye. But look at modern society. Our water contains fluoride. Our food contains preservatives. Our screens emit blue light. All of these things cause the pineal gland to calcify. In most adults, this gland is hard as a rock. It is shut down. We have been chemically blinded. We have been cut off from the very organ designed to connect us to the frequency of God. This is not an accident. A population with calcified pineal glands is a population that only believes in the material world. A population that cannot see the invisible is a population that is easily controlled by fear. To walk as Jesus walked, you must decalcify this organ. You must learn the practice of the single eye. This means closing your two physical eyes, which deal with duality and judgment, and focusing all your attention on the center point. When you do this, you stop seeing the problem and you start seeing the solution. You stop seeing the sickness and you start seeing the light pattern of health. You move from the realm of 3 dimensions into the realm of the kingdom. To reach this level of sensory clarity and vibratory power, Jesus utilized a method that most modern believers view as a chore rather than a technology. We are talking about fasting. The Bible tells us that before his ministry began, Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness eating nothing. The church teaches this was a test of willpower, a way to prove he could say no to the devil. But physically and energetically, it was something far more profound. It was a complete system reset. We must understand the biology of energy. Digestion is the single most energy-expensive process in the human body. A massive amount of your blood flow, your nervous system energy, and your metabolic power is constantly diverted to your stomach to break down dense matter. As long as you are full of food, you are grounded in the physical. Your energy is occupied with survival. By stopping the intake of food, Jesus was liberating a massive amount of bioelectrical energy. Where does that energy go when it is not being used for digestion? It goes to the brain, it goes to the nervous system, it goes to the repair of cells. Science calls this autophagy, where the body begins to eat its own damaged cells and regenerate new ones. But spiritually, it creates a surplus of power that can be used for higher consciousness. When Jesus faced the devil in the wilderness, the devil tempted him with bread. This was not just about hunger. It was a temptation to drop his frequency back down to the level of basic survival. By refusing the bread, Jesus was maintaining his state of high-frequency oscillation. He was keeping the vessel pure. He was saying that man does not live by chemical energy alone, but by the vibrational energy that proceeds from the mouth of God. This is why the mystics, the monks, and the shamans of every tradition fast before a major spiritual undertaking. They are not punishing the body, they are tuning the body. They are emptying the instrument so it can resonate without dampening. In the modern world, we are encouraged to eat constantly. We snack, we graze, we consume. We are terrified of the feeling of emptiness. But that emptiness is the very space required for the spirit to enter. You cannot fill a cup that is already full. By constantly stuffing ourselves with processed food, dead meat and sugar, we are keeping our vibration heavy and dense. We are grounding ourselves so firmly in the material world that we cannot sense the subtle frequencies of the kingdom. Jesus said this kind comes out only by prayer and fasting. He was referring to high-level demons or dense patterns of negativity. Why? Because to move a heavy weight you need a strong lever. Fasting lengthens the lever. It increases your spiritual authority because you are no longer operating as a flesh and blood human dependent on calories. You are operating as a light being fueled by source energy. This is the transition from the terrestrial to the celestial. Once the vessel is purified and the frequency is raised, we arrive at the most dangerous and powerful secret of all, the secret of identity. The reason most prayers fail is because of who is doing the praying. Most people pray from the identity of a small, limited human begging a big, distant God. This creates separation, and separation kills the flow of power. Jesus did not pray to a distant God. He prayed from a place of union. In John 10, verse 34, Jesus makes a statement that was so controversial, the religious leaders tried to stone him. He quoted Psalm 82 saying, "Is it not written in your law, I have said you are gods?" He did not say you are like God. He said you are gods, little g, but gods nonetheless. This is the mystery of the fractal. A drop of ocean water contains the exact same chemical composition as the entire ocean. It is not the whole ocean, but it is of the ocean. You are a drop of the divine consciousness. The power that created the universe is not just outside of you, it is inside of you. It is your very breath. When Moses asked God for his name at the burning bush, God did not give a name like Zeus or Ra. God gave a state of being. I am that I am. This phrase, I am, is the code. It is the key that unlocks the reality program. Whatever you put after the words, I am, you become. When you say I am sick, you are using the divine name to create sickness. When you say I am broke, you are using the power of God to manifest poverty. You are taking the creative power of the universe and using it against yourself. Jesus never said I am weak. He never said I am afraid. He used the name correctly. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. I am the light of the world. He was teaching us how to wear the identity of the divine. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is the ego thinking it is special. This is humility. True humility is accepting who God created you to be. If God is the fire, you are the spark, and the spark has the potential to start a forest fire. When you pray, you must stop praying as a beggar and start decreeing as a son or daughter who has the code. You must shift your identity from the created to the creator. This is what it means to pray in the name of Jesus. It does not mean tagging his name at the end of a sentence like a magical signature. It means standing in his standing. It means aligning with his consciousness. It means realizing that there is no gap between you and the source. The wire is connected. The current is flowing. You are the open door through which heaven enters earth. But there is a price for this power, a price that very few are willing to pay. And this brings us to the true meaning of the cross. We have sanitized the cross. We wear it as gold jewelry. We put it on our steeples. But in the time of Jesus, the cross was an instrument of death. It was a tool of execution. When Jesus said, "Pick up your cross and follow me," he was not telling you to have a hard life. He was not telling you to suffer. He was telling you how to access the resurrection power. You cannot have the resurrection without the crucifixion. But what is being crucified? Not your body, your ego, the false self, the mask you have worn your whole life. The version of you that is easily offended. The version of you that needs approval. The version of you that is afraid of the future. That little self cannot carry the high voltage of God. It would burn out, so it must die. The vertical beam of the cross represents the will of God. The horizontal beam represents the will of man. The cross is where the will of man is crossed out by the will of God. It is the geometric symbol of the cancellation of the ego. Jesus had to go through this in the Garden of Gethsemane. He sweated blood. His human survival instinct was screaming to run away. But he broke the ego. He said, "Not my will, but yours be done." In that moment, the man Jesus died and the Christ fully took over. This is the ego death. The mystics call it the dark night of the soul. It is that moment when everything you thought you were is stripped away. When your plans fail, when your reputation crumbles, when you are left with nothing. Most people run from this feeling. But if you stay in it, if you let the false self die, What remains is indestructible. What remains is the diamond soul that can conduct the light of miracles. You must be willing to let go of the person you used to become the person you are destined to be. You cannot drag your old baggage into the new dimension. The needle's eye is narrow. Only the naked soul can pass through. This is why the saints were so powerful. They were dead to the world. You could not insult them because they had no ego to defend. You could not threaten them with death because they were already anchored in eternal life. They had crossed out the I and replaced it with the I am. This is the ultimate freedom. The freedom from yourself. And in that empty space where your ego used to be, the power of the universe rushes in to fill the vacuum. So here is the truth that has been hidden from you. You are not a helpless observer in a random universe. You are a biological technology designed to house the frequency of God. The miracles of Jesus were not magic tricks performed by a visitor from the sky. They were demonstrations of what a human being is capable of when they are fully aligned with their source. The silence, the breath, the fasting, the focus, the spoken word, these are the buttons on the control panel of your reality. You have spent your whole life sitting in the cockpit of a fighter jet, thinking it was a bicycle. You have been pedaling when you could have been flying. It is time to stop pedaling. It is time to learn the controls. It is time to find the frequency. It is time to open the inner door. If you are ready to stop playing small and start uncovering the forbidden history of your own potential, then you are in the right place. The scrolls are opening, the seals are breaking. The truth is no longer hidden. It is just waiting for you to be brave enough to look at it. Subscribe to Forbidden Scrolls. Turn on the notification bell, because we are just getting started, and there are things in the archives that will change everything you thought you knew about God and yourself. Welcome to the awakening.